You know that feeling, that thrill when a bunch of things that seem totally separate suddenly just click and you feel like, I've cracked some kind of code.
Yeah, that little spark of connection.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of the journey we're hoping to take today, diving into the world of Bob Camblin.
Ah, Camblin. An interesting figure.
He might be a familiar name to some of you listening, maybe not, but he was definitely an artist who really explored that territory, where hidden meanings seem to lie.
And what's really striking is just the sheer amount of work he produced across so many different mediums, too.
Right.
We're talking oils, acrylics, watercolors, loads of drawings, prints, even painted paper. It's a huge body of work.
A real explosion of creativity, like you said, and so much of it is, well, not widely seen.
No, it has this sort of cult following almost. His pieces are really sought after by people who know his work, but they don't often show up in big public exhibitions.
Adds to the mystery, doesn't it?
None.
And so for our deep dive today, for you listening, we've gathered some fascinating glimpses into his mind.
What have we got?
We've got quotes directly from him, some key bits about his life story, and some really thoughtful interpretations of his art. We're going to look closely at one painting in particular, Space City Still Life.
Okay.
And we also have some excerpts from books that feature his unique perspective. So the mission, if you like, is to try and understand Camblin's singular view on art, on life, and, well, all of those interesting spaces in between.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The man himself.
Yeah, let's start there. So Bob Camblin, born 1928, Oklahoma.
Right. And his art education was at the Kansas City Art Institute. Then he got a Fulbright scholarship.
Which took him to Italy. Big deal.
Huge deal. And his time there seems to have been really formative. Visits to the Uffizi Gallery, all that incredible Renaissance art. But also, and this is interesting, the Capuchin Catacombs in Palermo.
The catacombs with the mummies.
Exactly. And apparently, those images, the mummy imagery as the sources call it, really stayed with him.
Wow. So you have this collision of classical beauty from the Uffizi, and then this, well, starker imagery of mortality from the catacombs.
Right. And that tension, that fascination with form, but also the fleeting nature of life, seems to pop up again and again in his later work.
You can definitely see echoes of that. After Italy, he taught for a while, didn't he? At a few universities.
He did. But then in 1976, he sort of became this nomadic artist, traveled a lot.
Right, exploring. But he did come back to teaching later at Rice University in Houston.
Yeah. And he passed away on December 3rd. The sources don't give the exact year, though.
But what consistently comes through is this description of his style as iconoclastic.
Definitely. He had his own way of doing things, for sure.
Yeah.
But he was still highly respected by other artists.
Yeah, that's key. And like you said, his art is rare, fetches high prices. It just adds to that whole enigmatic aura around him.
It really does. This idea of a powerful artist working slightly outside the spotlight is, well, it's compelling, isn't it?
Totally. So let's dig into those early influences a bit more. It started young.
Oh, yeah. Both his parents were artists.
Ah, so it was in the blood, so to speak.
You could say that. He was even the art director for his high school yearbook back in Ponca City, Oklahoma.
Ponca City. And that local stuff mattered, didn't it? Like the Marland Estate, that big oil mansion.
Right, and the Pioneer Woman statue. These weren't just landmarks. Sometimes they'd sort of subtly appear in his work. Like, apparently these double VVs sometimes show up as a nod to his mother, Viva Camblin.
That's fascinating, little personal codes.
Yeah. And get this, the movie The Wizard of Oz was supposedly a big influence on him as a kid.
No way, Oz.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
So you've got this mix of Oklahoma history, personal family stuff, and then this blast of popular culture fantasy. It's quite a foundation.
It really is. And he wasn't just looking, he was reading voraciously, too.
Absolutely. Immersed himself in Emerson, the I Ching.
The I Ching, yeah. That ancient Chinese book of changes. Fits with his interest in cycles, maybe.
Could be. And he was really drawn to haiku and haiga.
Haiga, that's the one with the image in the poem.
Right. Exactly. That combination of simple visuals and profound, concise observations really seemed to resonate with his whole approach. You can see it later in the economy of line in his drawings.
Makes sense. He also served in the military Korean War era.
He did, and there's a mention of him sketching the California coastline with a friend during that time. Always drawing, it seems.
And then came Italy. We mentioned the Uffizi and the catacombs, but specifically the Renaissance art, Botticelli.
Yes, Botticelli's Birth of Venus, Primavera, those themes of rebirth, mythology, they were huge for him.
And he didn't just admire them, he did his own versions, right? modern takes.
Yeah, which is really interesting, like his Birth of Venus that somehow references KPFT radio.
KPFT, the Houston radio station, that's wild.
Isn't it? Talk about mixing high art and, well, hyperlocal contemporary culture. He clearly wasn't afraid to blend things that seemed totally unrelated.
Definitely not. So later he lands in Houston, teaches at Rice, and there's a quote about St. Bambola and wanting to escape myth-making.
Yeah, it sounds like he was a bit wary of the whole process of how artists get turned into these larger-than-life figures, the narratives built around them.
He wanted the work to speak for itself, maybe. Avoid the baggage.
Seems like it. There's this tension there. And it ties into his views on exhibitions, too. He felt the artist should control the whole environment, minimize distractions for the viewer.
Let the art do the talking.
Pretty much. He even had this idea of the art game, which sounds a bit, I don't know, cynical. But he apparently meant it was based on common sense, just trusting that good work will connect.
That's actually quite straightforward. Almost surprisingly so, given how complex his art could be.
It is refreshing, isn't it? Just trust the art. No need for excessive explanation.
Yeah. And then there's that powerful image he used, turning a stumbling block into a stepping stone.
Oh, yeah. Represented by those paintings with jars of water.
It's such a clear metaphor. Finding clarity, finding a way forward through difficulty.
It resonates, doesn't it? Transmuting obstacles. It's a very almost alchemical idea.
And his Scarecrow series, too, inspired by a Günter Grass novel.
Dog ears, yeah. But they weren't just scarecrows. They started as symbols of spring, renewal.
Okay.
And then they sort of evolved into myths, legends.
Yeah.
He started incorporating things like lobster shells, larvae.
Wow. So really pushing that theme of metamorphosis, transformation.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Things changing, evolving, nothing fixed. That seems central.
And what about his use of text in drawings? That sounds intriguing.
It is, because it wasn't always just informational like a label. Sometimes the text might be a clue or maybe just another shape on the surface.
So playing with how we read images and words together.
Exactly. It kind of reminds you of that Tom Wolfe book, The Painted Word, right? The idea that modern art sometimes relies heavily on theory or text to be understood.
Right. Wolfe's argument about criticism becoming dominant. So Camblin might have been playing with that.
Possibly. Maybe using text in ambiguous ways, setting little traps, as one source puts it, to make you look harder, think deeper.
Challenging assumptions about reality.
Yeah. Ultimately, it feels like he wanted to gently nudge us to question what we think we know.
Which brings us perfectly to that painting, Space, City, Still Life. Can you paint a picture for us, verbally?
Okay, so imagine this terracotta pot. Very earthy, warm, and it's full of just a mix of green plants. Looks vibrant.
Okay, got it.
It's sitting on a windowsill, and there's soft sunlight hitting it. But then through the window, and the window has this distinct grid pattern, you see a city skyline.
Ah, the Space City.
Exactly. But it's hazy, sort of impressionistic, not sharp and clear. So you have this really strong contrast. The solid, earthy pot and plants right up close, and then this softer, man-made cityscape in the distance.
A little pocket of nature indoors with the big city just outside.
Precisely. A sense of a personal, cozy space right against the backdrop of this huge urban environment.
And the description mentions possible East Asian influences in the lines.
Yeah, the minimal lines used for the plants. And it draws comparisons to Matisse and Duffy, their window paintings.
Right, that classic trope of looking out from an interior space.
But Camblin definitely puts his own spin on it.
And the title itself, Space City Still Life, it's loaded, isn't it?
Totally. Space City could be Houston, obviously, with NASA.
Or just any modern, maybe futuristic city.
Right. It sets up that juxtaposition immediately. The organic, the still life against the technological, the urban space. Nature inside, structure outside, like a little personal oasis, as one analysis called it.
A personal oasis. I like that. Framed by the window grid?
Yeah, that grid is important too.
Now, we have this YouTube transcript analysis that goes even deeper. What stood out to you there?
Oh, lots of things. It really emphasizes the plant's vitality, its resilience, especially against that structured framework of the window grid.
So freedom versus constraint. Organic versus order.
Exactly that. And the idea that harmony can exist between these opposites, it feels very Zen almost, that balance, that duality.
The grid is logic, order, the plant is spontaneity, life.
Precisely, that constant interplay. And then it connects it to the I Ching.
Oh, interesting.
To the hexagram Fu, which means return or renewal. So the plant becomes this symbol of new energy coming back after dormancy.
Ah, like spring arriving.
Kind of. And the city outside is seen as both limiting, maybe, but also nourishing in some way.
Mhm.
It adds this layer of cyclical change, the ebb and flow.
That's a really rich interpretation, the painting capturing a moment in a cycle.
It is. And then it brings in Lao Tzu, Taoism,
Okay.
talking about aligning with the flow of life. Like the plant is rooted, grounded, but still reaching, striving.
Accepting boundaries but still growing.
Exactly. Finding harmony within limitations. That's a very Taoist idea.
That resonates.
And it also touches on mindfulness, interconnectedness.
Oh.
The plant, the pot, the light, the grid, they all depend on each other. Makes you think about all the unseen forces supporting things.
Things we usually take for granted.
For sure.
Ah,
The analysis even suggests the artwork itself mirrors the creative process, structured yet free, like those cascading tendrils of the plant. Unrestrained creativity, embracing imperfections.
The painting embodying its own making. That's lovely.
And finally, it suggests the painting could be seen as a kind of self-portrait of an ecosystem, or even a metaphor for us, how we thrive, how we stay resilient within society's constraints, how we find ways to be authentic within the structures imposed on us.
Wow. So much more than just a plant on a windowsill.
Absolutely. It's a whole philosophy packed into this seemingly simple scene.
Which leads us nicely into his broader philosophical ideas, his artistic intentions. The book reviews you mentioned shed light on this.
They really do. One describes his art as questions disguised as images,
I like that.
and philosophy as incomplete answers. So his work becomes this ongoing dialogue between the two.
A conversation made visible.
Yeah, and it talks about how he transforms ordinary things, like a figure for a trap isn't just a trap, it represents entanglement. A tattooed arm carries unspoken history. Even a frog embodies Zen wisdom.
Finding the profound in the mundane, that seems to be a recurring theme.
Definitely. His drawings are called paradoxes made visible, like blueprints for ideas. And the review mentions illusion, vanishing acts, making us question what's real.
And traps. What kind of traps?
Traps of fear, of time, the ones we make for ourselves. And stillness, too, is it being stuck or finding peace. The point is, the work raises questions, offers riddles, not easy answers.
Oh, easy answers. That connects to the foreword from that Zen and the Art of Enlightenment book, doesn't it?
It does. That forward traces how art changed from realism, trying to capture the external world,
To Impressionism, capturing fleeting sensations.
to abstraction, looking inward, exploring emotions, the subconscious. It suggests art mirrors our evolving understanding of reality.
And it links these shifts to Zen intuition, direct experience, and the I Ching interconnectedness cycles.
Exactly. And it positions Camblin's art right at that intersection, blending abstraction, symbolism, ancient wisdom, modern art. His work becomes a portal, it says, to heightened awareness.
Not just something to look at, but something to engage with, almost like meditation.
Yeah, prompting contemplative dialogue, self-inquiry, awakening intuitive understanding rather than just giving you a clear message.
Which fits with what Camblin himself seemed to want, that direct connection, art speaking to the soul without needing a critic to explain it.
Precisely. He wanted that immediate, visceral hit. And you see his own style evolve, too.
Yeah.
From abstract impressionism to that Muches Volantes series.
The dots and dashes, creating optical effects.
Yeah, really engaging the viewer's eye, their perception. And then later series like Big Al, Descent from the Cross. He kept exploring.
And he collaborated too, sometimes signed as anonymous artists.
Yeah, which is interesting. Submerging the ego, maybe focusing on the collective or just the work itself.
It helps to hear that description from Earl Staley, calling him a gregarious storyteller. Humanizes him a bit.
It does. Paints a picture of their shared studio, B&E Productions, doing collaborative shows. A lively time.
And then he leaves teaching, leaves Houston, ends up in the studio described as a treasure tableau.
Yeah, like a wizard's den, filled with strange and wonderful objects. It perfectly captures that enigmatic quality we've been talking about.
Okay, so to get even closer to his thinking, let's dive into some of those direct quotes, those mysteries.
Yes, Les. They offer such a direct window.
Like this one. Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps. Bam. Impermanence right there.
So concise, so dryly witty, but profound.
Or the haiku about the cottonwood trees. Dense cluster of new branches. Now with them gone, look, just the starkness of change.
That absence speaks volumes. And as they approach, the memory of songs and music stopped. How time just erodes even memory.
It's quite melancholic, but then he says, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
Finding meaning everywhere, science, magic, art, It's all interconnected for him.
He wanted that perfectly average view, but also acknowledged miracles were possible, aiming for that intensely bright gray where science and magic meet. A balanced view.
And the sixth sense is to be, without a doubt, senza dubio, no doubt. Pure intuition, trusting that inner knowing.
That pull between earth and spirit in bright day and I soar. How cruel that my soul is attached to this earth and yet so relatable.
That human condition. In his 1974 note, I cannot tell a lie to myself for very long. Find something in nature that completes you and then surrender. Self-awareness, connection to nature, surrender. Powerful stuff.
And these seem like core beliefs. The light is all you need. The end is to evolve by doing the best you can. The means is to amplify what you're doing and believe.
Almost like guiding principles, focus, effort, belief.
And those little verses on balance, patience, freedom, silence, reality, pain, even love moving to indifference, they're like tiny philosophical explorations.
Yeah, wrestling with life's big complexities in these concise snippets.
Sublime in the ridiculous, look for the forgotten, but become what you are, less only is. That feels very Camblin. Find value anywhere, be authentic, maybe simplify.
Less only is. Intriguing. And his take on art's purpose. Not just art for art's sake, but for life, survival, my sake. Very personal.
I love this one. Step off the train of thought to find the power that is no power, to do the work that is not work, to laugh the true laugh. Bending is not bowing.
So zen. That embrace of paradox, finding freedom in unexpected ways.
And the image of regretting missing the clouds, the mind ripping out to reach the still pond, that sudden desperate grasp for clarity.
Visceral. And the simple commands, when you think, don't act. When you act, don't think. Intuition versus analysis again.
The anecdote about changing the world than just paying for coffee, grand ideas grounded in simple action.
Keeps it real. The cosmos waves as me with tree leaves. Just beautiful. That sense of oneness.
Finding drama in watching clouds in his On the Tower piece. Seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Much better than arguing is the look at my watercolor palette.
Yeah.
Finding peace in the practice of art.
His chat with Mother Nature about his last picture, so whimsical, shows his playful side.
And 5 thoughts crashing at an intersection. The randomness of the mind. Perfect image.
His advice on ending arguments with pessimists and optimists shows a shrewd understanding of people, with humor.
And this is key. If you argue, or if you agree, you may learn, but you do not communicate. True understanding lies beyond just agreement or disagreement.
The open gate and broken fence for searching, always looking, but maybe the path isn't clear.
Distinguishing revolution from evolution, different kinds of change. And that old truth, you never miss the water until the wells run dry. Appreciate what you have.
The haiku about the starlings on broken branches, no new growth, another subtle image of nature's state, maybe stagnation.
Every day the clouds circle our tower as if we again were the intruders. A humbling thought about our place here.
That empathy and poor fish, trapped by the changing tides, so much like us, seeing ourselves in nature's struggle.
Contemplating coming back as a fly, finding beauty in the overlooked.
And that really cryptic advice, bleached, textured, and white, pray ever avoid the lamp fate. What does that even mean?
Who knows? That's part of the mystery, right? Leaves you thinking.
Canvas rectangle, summer light, calligraphy, mystic and complete. Boiling art down to its essence. Plus all those other haikus, little snapshots of observation.
Then his thoughts on nostalgia, like guests and fish, shouldn't be kept too long. Only dredge memory if it serves a deeper reptilian brain purpose. Fascinating.
The artist today is the only free agent. A bold claim about artistic freedom.
And his ideas on belief shaping reality. If I believe it's art, then it is. The power of perception.
Distinguishing believing from knowing, suggesting mystics access a different kind of understanding.
History is believable when it is creative. Questioning objective truth in narratives.
Calling cynicism creativity gone destructive, and lamenting that we lose our magic by trying to understand everything instead of just knowing intuitively.
His mission: draw, teach, search, reveal, always framed in paradox. Sums him up well.
His critique of the art world seduced by history, critics, money, and that classic line about critics.
A critic is a legless man who teaches running. Ouch. But memorable.
Emphasizing drawing as nonverbal communication, intention over skill. Artists helping historians find Easter eggs. Playful, but pointed.
Warning that facility being too slick can be like the Midas touch maybe kills the soul of the work.
Pointing out the correlation between empty art and critics rushing to fill it with meaning, and that zinger. The visual arts have finally become non-visual.
Wow. Provocative. He mentions zazen, the focused, aimless mind, mindfulness.
His advice on drawing, keep it playful, about discovery, conceptualization.
Capturing the simple power of haiku, the reaction is more. Finding your own mystic switch, that gut feeling of truth.
Seeing versus looking, learning from failure, resisting rote learning for real thinking. That paradox. I didn't learn anything new, but I know a lot more now.
Deeper understanding, maybe, and we have nothing to fear but fear ourselves. Our biggest obstacles are internal.
Understanding the Zen monk's cousin about always being Buddha on a deeper level over time. Seeing mirrors not just as reflections, but as other people, the magic and connection.
The jump metaphor for innate talent. Distinguishing intellectual seeing from magical seeing, which art tries to capture.
Real seeing as a complex whirlpool of relationships, art only capturing part of it. Fool the eye, fool the mind. Perception is tricky.
Recognizing the artist's dilemma. Novelty versus technique in a disposable culture. Worrying about symbols like yin and yang becoming trivialized. Explanation killing the magic.
The wonder and sadness of communication. And finding joy. How nice to finally mix fun and art.
Reflecting on aging influences, hoping for new forms. The standard sign against the sunset, limitations of received knowledge.
White crystals as life-death cycles, his practical advice, no mistakes, just do your best, feedback from nature.
Quoting Shakespeare on pride. Using holograms to explain cooperation versus argument. Seeing the whole picture together. The hologram.
Chaos and order as a cycle, approaching real-time, inevitable necessity. Pondering finite versus infinite universes, solipsism.
Living in past, present, future. Hilbert's space for dreaming how it works. Time travel via enlightenment.
Hawk versus snake life paths, the complexity of the path of least resistance for humans.
The way back. Silence, melting rocks, infinite space, return, action needed, linking past and future. The anecdote about architect Louis Sullivan in a broom closet, reflecting on honor, different kinds of crutches we lean on.
War's futility, the importance of freedom, dolce far niente, the sweetness of doing nothing.
The phoenix frozen in salt, trapped potential. The empty ribcage filled with sand, the living create the meaning. The cosmos folding back on itself.
Wow, okay. That is an incredible tapestry of thoughts, a truly restless, searching mind.
It really is. And as you listen to all that, you can really feel how his explorations kind of mirror our own curiosity, right?
Yeah.
That desire you might feel for deeper understanding.
Absolutely. And hopefully as we've gone through these different threads, his life, his art, his words, you listening have felt some of those aha moments yourself.
Those connections sparking.
Yeah. Connecting the quotes, the images, the philosophy. It really highlights how valuable it is to embrace paradox like he did, to question assumptions, to find meaning in the everyday stuff.
Things Camblin did so well.
Exactly. His whole artistic journey seems to exemplify that.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've met Bob Camblin, this truly enigmatic, iconoclastic artist. Someone not afraid to tackle big themes using imagery that's often accessible, but layered with meaning.
We looked closely at Space City Still Life, that interplay of structure and freedom, nature thriving in the city.
And through his words, his artistic path, we saw this constant encouragement to interpret for ourselves, to keep questioning, to stay open, both in art and, well, in life.
Which leads us to a final thought, a provocation for you to take away. Inspired by Camblin's playful curiosity, his open-mindedness, how could you apply that same spirit to the little mysteries in your own life, your own surroundings?
Good question.
What traps, as he called them, maybe assumptions or limitations you haven't examined, might you be overlooking? And what deeper meanings could bubble up if you just shifted your perspective slightly?
Maybe looking into more of Camblin's work, if you can find it, or exploring Zen or the I Ching or just artistic philosophy in general.
Yeah.
Might spark something.
Could be the key to unlocking some of those personal mysteries. Something to think about.